Welcome, dear friends, to a story with unexpected twists of fate and a second chance at love and happiness. Enjoy the story. Sarah Thompson stared at her reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror, dark circles under her eyes betraying the sleepless nights she'd endured since her husband's sudden death. At 35, she was now a widow with 4 children to support, and no idea how she was going to make ends meet. "Mom, I think I should get a job," her eldest son Max announced over breakfast, stirring his cereal absently. Sarah's head snapped up, her eyes wide with surprise. "What? You're only 17, Max? What about school?" Max shrugged, avoiding her gaze. "Not everyone needs to go to college, Mom. Someone's got to do the manual labor, right? And that someone is not going to be you," Sarah said firmly, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand. "Your father would have wanted you to get an education." "But Dad's gone," Max said quietly, his voice cracking slightly. "And we need money." Sarah's heart ached at the pain in her son's voice. "Listen to me, Max. Your job right now is to focus on your studies. I'll figure something out, I promise." Just then, their conversation was interrupted by the pitter-patter of tiny feet. 4-year-old Mia came bounding into the kitchen, her pigtails bouncing with each step. "I'm gonna be a boss, too," she declared, climbing onto Sarah's lap. Sarah couldn't help but laugh, hugging her youngest close. "Of course you will, sweetie. You'll be the boss of everyone." As she looked around the kitchen at her children, Max, 12-year-old Nathan, 7-year-old Peter, and little Mia, Sarah felt a renewed determination. She had to find a way to provide for them, to give them the future her late husband, Jack, had dreamed of for their family. "All right, troops," she said, clapping her hands together. "Time for school. And Max, remember what I said, no job hunting. Your only job is to ace those college applications, got it?" Max nodded reluctantly, but Sarah could see the worry still lingering in his eyes. As she watched her children file out the door, she knew she had to act fast. It was time to rejoin the workforce, ready or not. Sarah spent the morning scouring job listings, her frustration growing with each passing hour. Everything seemed to require either a college degree or years of experience, neither of which she had after years as a stay-at-home mom. Just as she was about to give up, an ad caught her eye. Elite cleaning services seeking responsible women for high-end residential work. Excellent pay, flexible hours, no experience necessary. Sarah's heart raced as she dialed the number. It seemed too good to be true, but she was desperate enough to try anything. "Elite Cleaning Services, this is Jessica. How can I help you?" a cheerful voice answered. "Hi, I'm calling about the cleaning job," Sarah said, trying to keep the nervousness out of her voice. "Is it still available?" "Absolutely. Can you come in for an interview this afternoon?" Sarah hesitated, thinking of her afternoon school pickup routine. "I have to get my kids from school at 3. "No problem at all," Jessica assured her. "How about 1 p.m.? That should give us plenty of time to chat before you need to leave." As Sarah hung up the phone, a mix of excitement and anxiety swirled in her stomach. This could be the answer to their financial problems, or it could be a complete disaster. The Elite Cleaning Services office was located in a sleek, modern building that made Sarah feel instantly underdressed in her simple blouse and slacks. She smoothed her hair nervously as she approached the reception desk. Jessica, a polished woman in her mid-40s, greeted Sarah with a warm smile. "You must be Sarah. Come on back to my office." As they settled into plush leather chairs, Jessica's expression turned serious. "Now, Sarah, I want to be upfront with you. This isn't your average cleaning job. Our clients are some of the wealthiest and most influential people in the city. Discretion is absolutely paramount." Sarah nodded, trying to look confident. "I understand. I can be very discreet." Jessica leaned forward, her voice lowering. "We'll need to run a thorough background check. Is there anything we might find that you want to disclose now?" Sarah's mind raced. She had never even had a parking ticket, but the intensity of Jessica's gaze made her feel like she must be hiding something. "No, nothing at all. My husband was in law enforcement, actually. He passed away recently." Jessica's expression softened. "I'm so sorry for your loss. May I ask why you're looking for work now?" Sarah took a deep breath, fighting back tears. 4 kids to support on my own. I have to do something. Jessica nodded sympathetically. I understand. Well, let me tell you about the pay. She scribbled a number on a piece of paper and slid it across the desk. Sarah's eyes widened as she read it. Per quarter? She asked incredulously. Jessica shook her head. Per month. Sarah's jaw dropped. It was more than Jack had made as a police officer. That's incredible, she stammered. It comes with high expectations, Jessica warned. 1 complaint from a client, and you'll be fined half that amount. But if you're as thorough and discreet as I think you are, you shouldn't have any problems. As Sarah left the office with promises of a call the next day, her mind was reeling. This job could change everything for her family, if she could handle it. Sarah's phone rang at 7 a.m. sharp the next morning. It was Jessica, informing her that she'd passed the background check and could start immediately. Your first client is Mr. Gregory Sinclair, Jessica explained. He's a very private person, so remember, discretion is key. The address will be sent to your phone. Good luck. An hour later, Sarah stood outside a massive Georgian-style mansion, her cleaning supplies in hand. She took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. The door creaked open to reveal a petite, elderly woman with silver hair. Yes? She asked, peering at Sarah suspiciously. Good morning. I'm Sarah from Elite Cleaning Service. Sarah's introduction was cut short as the woman's eyes widened in shock. She stumbled backward, clutching her chest. Oh my God! Sarah exclaimed, dropping her supplies and rushing to catch the woman before she fell. Are you all right? Should I call an ambulance? The woman shook her head weakly, allowing Sarah to guide her to a nearby armchair. No, I'm fine. It's just, you look exactly like her. Sarah frowned in confusion. Like who? The woman pointed a trembling finger at a framed photograph on a nearby table. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she saw the image. It was like looking in a mirror. The woman in the photo could have been her twin, right down to the dimple in her left cheek. Who? Who is that? Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. That's Allison, my son Gregory's wife, the woman explained, her voice thick with emotion. She passed away last week. We just had the funeral. Sarah's mind was reeling. I'm so sorry for your loss, Mrs. Sinclair. I had no idea. This must be terribly upsetting for you. I should go. No! Mrs. Sinclair grabbed Sarah's hand. Please, don't leave. I need to understand. How is this possible? Just then, the front door opened and a deep voice called out, Mom, are you all right? I saw the cleaning service car outside and... The voice cut off abruptly as a tall, distinguished-looking man in his early 40s entered the room. His eyes locked on Sarah, and all the color drained from his face. Allie? He whispered, taking a stumbling step forward. Sarah held up her hands, her heart pounding. No, I'm not Allison. My name is Sarah Thompson. I'm from the cleaning service. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I should leave. Gregory Sinclair shook his head as if trying to clear it. No, please, don't go. This is extraordinary. Mom, are you seeing this? Mrs. Sinclair nodded, her eyes never leaving Sarah's face. It's uncanny, Gregory. They could be twins. Sarah shifted uncomfortably. I really should be going. I'm clearly causing you both distress, and that's the last thing I want to do. Gregory stepped forward, his expression a mix of grief and fascination. Please, Sarah, would you mind staying for a cup of coffee? I think we all have some questions that need answering. Against her better judgment, Sarah found herself nodding. As she followed the Sinclairs into their opulent kitchen, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change in ways she never could have imagined. Over steaming mugs of coffee, Sarah listened in stunned silence as Gregory and his mother Eleanor recounted the tragic story of Allison's death. She had suffered a severe allergic reaction to a bee sting at a charity event, passing away before paramedics could arrive. It was so sudden, Gregory said, his voice thick with emotion. 1 minute she was laughing, the next, she was gone. Sarah's heart ached for them. I'm so sorry. I can't imagine how difficult this must be for you both. Eleanor reached out and patted Sarah's hand. You're very kind, dear. But tell us about yourself. Where are you from? Do you have any family in the area? Sarah hesitated, unsure of how much to share. I grew up in the foster system, actually. Never knew my birth parents. I have 4 children of my own now, though. My husband passed away recently, which is why I'm looking for work. Gregory's eyebrows shot up. 4 children? Wow, you must have your hands full. Sarah smiled wryly. You have no idea. As they continued to talk, Sarah couldn't shake the nagging feeling that there was more to this strange coincidence than met the eye. I hope you don't mind me asking, but did Allison ever mention having a sister or being adopted, perhaps? Gregory and Eleanor exchanged a puzzled look. No, never, Gregory said. Allison was an only child. Her parents are both professors at the university. They're devastated, of course. Sarah's mind was racing. Would it be possible for me to speak with them? Allison's parents, I mean? I know it's a long shot, but maybe they have some information that could explain this. She gestured to her face, so eerily similar to the woman in the photograph. Gregory hesitated. I'm not sure that's a good idea. They're still grieving, and seeing you might be too much of a shock. I understand, Sarah said, trying to hide her disappointment. It's just, I've always wondered about my birth family, and now, with this uncanny resemblance, I can't help but think there might be a connection. Eleanor leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with interest. Oh, Gregory, we have to help her. Imagine if there's some family secret we don't know about. Wouldn't you want to know the truth? Gregory sighed, running a hand through his hair. All right. I'll give them a call. But Sarah, please don't get your hopes up. This could all be just a very strange coincidence. 2 days later, Sarah found herself standing on the doorstep of Dr. Frank and Dr. Elizabeth Porter, Allison's parents. Her palms were sweaty as she rang the doorbell, Gregory standing supportively by her side. The door swung open, revealing a distinguished-looking man in his late 60s. Gregory, what's the meaning of— His words died on his lips as he caught sight of Sarah. Frank, who is it? A woman's voice called from inside the house. She appeared behind her husband, her eyes widening in shock as she saw Sarah. Oh my God, she whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. Doctor and Dr. Porter, this is Sarah Thompson, Gregory said gently. We thought you should meet her. Frank Porter's face had gone ashen. It's not possible, he muttered. Elizabeth, tell me I'm not seeing things. Elizabeth Porter reached out a trembling hand toward Sarah's face, stopping just short of touching her. You look just like our Allie, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Sarah took a deep breath. I'm so sorry to intrude on your grief, she said, but I grew up in foster care, never knowing my birth parents. When I met the Sinclairs and saw Allison's photo, I had to know if there was a connection. Frank and Elizabeth exchanged a long, meaningful look. Finally, Elizabeth nodded, tears welling in her eyes. You'd better come in, Frank said gruffly. We have a lot to talk about. Over the next hour, Sarah listened in stunned silence as the Porters revealed a secret they'd kept for over 35 years. We were young, struggling graduate students, Elizabeth explained, her voice choked with emotion. When I found out I was pregnant with twins, I panicked. We could barely afford one baby, let alone 2. Frank picked up the story. We made a terrible decision. We kept Allison and gave you up for adoption. We told ourselves it was for the best, that you'd have a better life with a family who could afford to raise you properly. Sarah felt as if the room was spinning. You're my parents? And Allison was my twin sister? Elizabeth nodded, tears streaming down her face. Can you ever forgive us? Sarah's mind was reeling. All her life she'd wondered about her birth parents, imagined countless scenarios, but nothing could have prepared her for this. I don't know what to say, she stammered. I need some time to process this. Gregory, who had been silent throughout the revelation, finally spoke up. Sarah, I know this is a lot to take in, but I want you to know, I'd like to get to know you. You're Allison's sister, which makes you family. And your children? They're Allison's nieces and nephews. Sarah looked at him, seeing the pain and hope mingled in his eyes. She thought of her own children, how excited they would be to suddenly have grandparents and an uncle. I think, she said slowly, that we all have a lot of catching up to do. In the weeks that followed, Sarah's life underwent a whirlwind of changes. Frank and Elizabeth Porter threw themselves into the role of grandparents with gusto, showering Max, Nathan, Peter, and Mia with attention and affection. Gregory became a constant presence in their lives, helping Sarah navigate the challenges of single parenthood and offering a shoulder to lean on when the weight of recent events became too much to bear. One evening, as they sat on Sarah's porch watching the kids play in the yard, Gregory turned to her with a serious expression. "Sarah, I know this might seem strange, given everything that's happened, but I can't help feeling like this was all meant to be. Finding you, I mean." Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. "What are you saying, Gregory?" He took her hand in his touch sending a jolt of electricity through her. "I'm saying that I'd like to see where this goes. Us, I mean, if you're open to it." Sarah hesitated, thinking of Allison, of the bizarre circumstances that had brought them together. "I don't know, Gregory. Isn't it too soon? And what about the kids?" Gregory smiled. "The kids adore you, Sarah. And as for it being too soon, life's too short to waste time. Allison taught me that. I think she'd want us both to be happy." As Sarah looked into Gregory's eyes, she felt a warmth spreading through her chest. It wasn't the all-consuming passion she'd had with Jack, but something different. A gentle, steady flame of possibility. "Okay," she said softly. "Let's see where this goes." 1 year later. Sarah stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her wedding veil. She could hardly believe that a year ago, she'd been a struggling widow, uncertain of how she'd provide for her children. Now she was marrying Gregory Sinclair, with their blended family of 6 kids cheering them on. A knock at the door interrupted her reverie. "Come in," she called. Elizabeth Porter entered, her eyes misty as she took in the sight of her daughter in her wedding gown. "Oh, Sarah," she breathed, "you look absolutely beautiful." Sarah smiled, feeling a mix of emotions wash over her. "Thank you, Mom," she said, the words still feeling strange on her tongue. Elizabeth stepped forward, taking Sarah's hands in hers. "I know this past year hasn't been easy," she said softly, "and I know Frank and I can never make up for the years we lost, but I want you to know how grateful we are to have you in our lives now." Sarah felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. "I'm grateful too," she admitted. "I never thought I'd have parents, let alone grandparents for my children. It's more than I ever dreamed of." There was a moment of comfortable silence between them, both women reflecting on the unexpected twists and turns that had brought them to this point. "You know," Elizabeth said, a hint of mischief in her voice, "I always dreamed of having a big, noisy family. I guess I'm finally getting my wish, just a few decades later than I expected." Sarah laughed, the tension of the moment broken. "Well, with 4 kids of my own and Gregory's too, you're certainly getting the noise part." Just then, there was another knock at the door. This time, it was Max, looking handsome in his suit. "Mom, it's time," he said, his voice deepening with the onset of adulthood. Sarah took a deep breath, smoothing down her dress. "Okay, I'm ready." As they made their way to the garden where the ceremony was to take place, Sarah's mind wandered back to that fateful day when she'd first knocked on the Sinclair's door. Who could have imagined that a simple cleaning job would lead to all of this? The garden was a vision of beauty, with white roses and twinkling lights creating a fairy tale atmosphere. As Sarah began her walk down the aisle, she saw the faces of her new, expanded family. There was Frank, looking proudly at the daughter he'd only recently discovered. Next to him sat Eleanor Sinclair, who had become like a second mother to Sarah over the past year. Sarah's children were there too, of course. Max stood tall and proud, ready to give his mother away. Nathan and Peter fidgeted in their suits, while little Mia beamed from her place as flower girl. Gregory's children, Emma and Liam, sat with wide grins, excited to officially welcome Sarah into their family. And at the end of the aisle stood Gregory, his eyes shining with love and happiness as he watched Sarah approach. As she reached him and took his hands, Sarah felt a sense of peace wash over her. This wasn't the life she had planned, but it was beautiful in its own unexpected way. "Ready?" Gregory whispered, giving her hands a gentle squeeze. Sarah nodded, smiling up at him. "Ready." As the officiant began the ceremony, Sarah couldn't help but think of Allison. In a strange way, her sister had brought them all together, even in death. She sent a silent thank you to the twin she'd never known, grateful for the twist of fate that had led her to this moment. The reception was a joyous affair, filled with laughter, tears, and countless toasts to new beginnings. As Sarah and Gregory shared their first dance, she caught sight of her children laughing with their new step-siblings and grandparents. "Penny for your thoughts?" Gregory murmured, pulling her close. Sarah smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "I was just thinking about how lucky we are," she said. "A year ago, I thought my life was over. Now I feel like it's just beginning." As they drove off into the night, surrounded by the cheers and well-wishes of their loved ones, Sarah felt a sense of excitement for the future. She didn't know what challenges lay ahead, but she knew that with her newly expanded family by her side, she could face anything. The cleaning job that had started it all was long forgotten, replaced by the promise of a new life filled with love, laughter, and the joy of unexpected blessings. Sarah Thompson Sinclair was ready for whatever adventures lay ahead, grateful for the second chance at happiness that fate had granted her.